Welcome back to Small Changes, Big Shifts. I'm Dr. Michelle Robin. It's hard to believe we are through another month. How crazy is that? I'm here with my co-host, Bayleigh Soza, and we've been taking you on a journey this month talking about with Dr. Sippy, about kind of the way you show up in the world and celebrating mothers. Also trying to, how do you navigate your bonus mothers? How do you navigate some of the trauma around Mother's Day? And then we talked to Dr. Tyler Smith about kind of preparing your kids for summer, looking at your passion, what brings you joy, and Dr. Du talking about heart health. 1 in 3 women who will have heart disease, and so she kinda gave you the mechanics of the heart and some stats and lots of passion and energy around it, but I really wanted to close this month with Jessica Love. Jessica Love is a nurse practitioner who has her own story around the heart, but really lives from the heart, and so I invite her to share on the show today. So, Jessica, welcome to Small Changes, Big Shifts.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell us your story, why you got in medicine, and then I would love to hear your heart story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a nurse. I graduated in 2009 and I worked in ICU. Always had a passion for helping people. And so I worked in a level one trauma center, worked night shift for 6+ years. And I saw a lot of things happen that were really preventable diseases, things like high blood pressure leading to stroke and all kinds of things like that. And I wanted to work on the other side of it and keep people out of the ICU. So I went back to school and I became a nurse practitioner and really with the incentive of preventative, working from a perspective of let's keep people's blood pressure down, let's keep their diet right, their exercise, and all of those things, and educate people, really work on that side. And while I'm a huge advocate of the mind body connection, and while I was in school, I had a stress-induced cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome. So that is one of the things. I have a full story on that, but it led me to really fully encompass the whole mind body connection and how our stress levels and all of those things can affect the heart in sometimes subtle ways and sometimes very drastic ways. I was on life support, had resuscitative efforts, and made a full recovery, thanks to St. Luke's Mid-America Heart Institute. And so I'm here to tell my story and also to help others, with their stress management and how that affects, their heart and their overall just whole body health.
I want to circle back, if you don't mind, to share a little bit more about your story in that broken heart syndrome. And really, what lessons do you think? Because we talk oftentimes the show, there's always things happening for you. And so, what from that experience do you think happened for you to be the practitioner you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was actually in my pediatric clinical rotation and I got up just like any other normal day, but I felt my heart kind of racing. And I just thought maybe, I skipped my morning coffee and I went to my clinical rotation and flash forward through the day, I started having pressure on the chest, shortness of breath, felt like I had weights on my feet. It was just really hard to function. And I was thinking, is this stress or is this something else? And so I ended up checking myself into the emergency room and my heart was in a lethal arrhythmia and my blood pressure was really low. And I ended up getting life flighted and put on life support. And I remember them telling me that they were going to have to put the breathing tube in. And I wanted to talk, say to my parents, I said, bring my parents in. And I let them know, I was like, hey, everything's going to be okay. And then next thing I remember was a few days later, and the breathing tube was in, I had lines everywhere, and they told me, and then eventually, ultimately, all of that was removed and my heart recovered. But they told me I had broken heart syndrome, and I didn't fit that clinical picture of that postmenopausal woman that had a catastrophic event. Usually in textbooks, when you think about broken heart syndrome, it is a natural disaster, the death of a loved one, something like that happens, and it creates this ballooning in the heart that mimics an octopus pot, which is why it's called Takotsubo. And that is usually kind of the typical. So everybody was looking at me, 30 years old, healthy, active, eating well. I said, well, what happened? And for me, it was like a catecholamine storm that affected my heart. And that in turn solidified and really reinforced we really need to be paying attention to the mind body connection. We need to be asking those questions. As a provider, I think that we do ask, hey, what's your stress level? Are you exercising? All of that. We kind of skim over that a little bit because it's a long discussion for people. Very rarely do I hear people say, I have no stress. I have none in my life. And so, how do we manage that? What are our coping mechanisms? Are they effective? Are they healthy? Are they harmful? We need to be asking those questions. And I saw that there was a huge gap in that. And so, that helped me then first from a personal perspective, but also just help other people ask those questions, open up that door for people to give them healthier habits and healthier tools. Because what happens with that stress for me, I was idling at a level that I didn't come to my awareness of how high I was idling there. For me, that was normal. I felt fine. And we need to be paying attention to those things and seeing how that affects our bodies. And so my practice and what I'm doing is asking those questions and try to fill those gaps. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Certain people are operating at or idling. I love that word. I love the word idling. People are idling at a certain level of health and they don't know they can either feel better or they could feel worse. And as a chiropractor and somebody who's been around this medicine for 45 years, we believe that people live their life through their nervous system. So, how has your journey helped you lean into that more?
For the nervous system piece, definitely it has helped me personally, pay more attention into my awareness of, how I navigate the day-to-day activities, leading with gratitude, compassion, and all of that. I've tied in a lot of nervous system regulation techniques into even my prior what I was doing for in professionally with people. Asking those questions of how they manage their stress levels, what do they do? And then techniques like that, for instance, heart math is something that I use. It's a nervous system technique. It's looking at heart rate variability. They call it coherence. So it is the mind, the body. So it's the heart, brain, and nervous system regulation. And when we talk about heart rate variability, it's we have our heart rate, which is, how many beats per minute, but what's happening in between those beats. And with heart rate variability, it really takes in that nervous system regulation piece. And so it's something that we can measure, it's something we can look at, and it really does tie in that how does it all connected? And so personally, that's helped me on my journey pay attention. I'm kind of a science numbers person, so I like to notice those numbers and not let that define my life, but kind of have be a guide in some way. We can say, "Oh, yes, this is how I feel," but also we're able to kind of measure those things too. And then also how I can help others, where are we at? Where is the idling baseline? Where are you at? And then where can we improve? And so that helps me, although I'm not a licensed psychologist or trauma certified, we certainly can put more tools in our toolbox and other people's toolbox to be able to navigate those things.
Well, I think that's the biggest piece is it's always more than just one thing. We are whole humans, and so we have to take into all those variables, and it is always great to hear that practitioners are prioritizing that, of looking at the big picture, and I love the numbers piece. Dr. Robin says all the time at our office, when people know the why, it's a lot easier to comply, and so, yes, they feel stressed. Yes, they're having some health concerns, and the data now shows it by being able to use your heart math and the way that you're gonna walk all of your clients through that process, and so for women out there, we know Dr. Robin started the show with the statistics on how heart health affects women. What are some of those quiet symptoms that maybe we are not paying attention to that are our body's way of saying something might not be right?
Absolutely. So some people are more intuitive with their body and some people, not as much. The things about like if you notice yourself, some people it's the subtle signals. It's the fatigue all of a sudden. It's not just because somebody has maybe a viral infection or something like that. It's that fatigue that kind of like, oh, well, I feel like I just need a couple more hours of sleep every single day. Or maybe I need a nap in the middle of the day. Or maybe there was an activity that somebody liked to do before, whether it be play pickleball or karate or something like that. And they just said, well, I just kind of don't feel like doing that anymore. And sometimes they really can't pinpoint why. Maybe it's tiredness, maybe it's this, but it's that fatigue. The classic symptoms of cardiovascular disease don't really apply with women, and sometimes women do, but that elephant on the chest, the shortness of breath, sometimes that we've studied in school, doesn't typically, sometimes with women or some people that have diabetes, they don't present that way. Sometimes it can be more subtle symptoms like that fatigue, always sometimes a little bit of dizziness, lightheadedness, those sorts of things. It's really important to, those are acute type is shortness of breath. That's one, being winded, asking the question of like, what I used to ask was, did you have to stop and rest before you came into your visit today? Is that new for you? Or, sometimes like, are you able to walk around the block without stopping to rest? Or if you do stop, what stops you? Is it that, do your knees hurt? Or is it that you're feeling short of breath? Do you feel winded, lightheaded? What is stopping you from doing that whole block? So some of those little subtle things are really. I had a person that was singing in a choir, and all of a sudden they noticed that they were having to take more breaths, when they were doing their choir rehearsals. So some of those, then I did an echocardiogram on them and noticed that they were having a valve issue. So it's some little things like that. We just have to be asking the right questions.
Yeah. Jessica, you are embarking on a new part of your journey with your new business. Tell us a little about what you hope to accomplish and what would be a little different than the normal visit at the cardiologist.
Yeah. So I want to be able to spend more time with people. Well, not a little bit, a lot more of a comprehensive approach to really understanding what someone's day to day looks like, to get a deeper dive. I feel like prior to this, we were limited so much on time. There were so many things that needed to be covered in such a short period of time. And to get to really the root cause and like a whole person approach to health, we really have to dig and take the time. That's one piece. But then the other piece is the education part. I feel like there wasn't enough time to empower people and give people that education and that awareness to make the decisions about their own health and behavior changes and those sorts. Give them, they don't really understand the why of, we say, oh, well, you need to do this and this and this. Well, why? So it really having that time. So I would like to create that time in the space for myself and that person to be able to really explore the why and the answers and really getting to that whole person approach without you know, the just limited time and just really a problem focused visit is appropriate in certain ways. But when we're looking at the whole person, it just takes more time, more education, and all of that.
Well, I think it's like two things can be true at the same time, right? There is a time and a place for, like you said, that problem focused one to one visit. And truthfully, some people prefer their information that way of like in, out, tell me what I need to do. And they kind of just want to do it. But there is that group that is that forgotten middle. And you shared with your own journey. That's what brought to your awareness of there's this group that's missing of they want to know the why, they want to dive deeper. Maybe they don't even know what questions to ask. And so it's beautiful. That's what you're building in your practice is a space for all people to come in and have that time to just say, here's what's going on. I'm not sure what to do, but I trust you. And I know you have my best interest at heart and at heart. Look at that. And I didn't even mean to do that. My best interest at heart, and we'll work through it together. And so for anybody out there who is struggling with the busyness of life or the fullness of life, I'm going to ask you what are 3 to 5 simply daily practices that can move the needle towards heart health. Okay. So, for those of us that live really full lives, full of things that we love to do that keep us busy, what are 3 to 5 things that we could start to incorporate into our routines that will push the needle towards heart health?
Yeah, absolutely. So, number one, I say lead with gratitude. Start your day with gratitude. That's huge, huge, huge. Before you even don't get on your phone, like before you even get out of bed, three things. What are you grateful for? It can be as simple as the pillow that you're, underneath your head. Three things, and you seal your day with gratitude as well. And that really sets an energetic tone for your day. Number two, well, this is not in priority, but gratitude's number one for sure. But another thing is really be cognizant about what you're putting in your body and on your body. There's a lot of processed foods and a lot of inflammatory things that we put in our body, and even out of convenience, there's a lot of confusion about that and around that, and that's a whole different topic. But staying as much looking at things from an inflammation standpoint and trying to avoid as much processed stuff and eat whole, really just whole foods as much as you can. Another thing is getting adequate sleep. A lot of us, we don't get adequate number of hours or just quality of sleep. That's huge from cellular regeneration standpoint. Another thing is move your body, whether that looks like dynamic stretching, yoga, whether it be going for a jog, swimming, anything. Combining strength training and cardiovascular exercises is really, really important for heart health. Something else is slow down, slow down. I have to constantly remind myself of that too. I'm going to tell on myself. But, sometimes we wear this badge of look how much I've accomplished and it's not even noon yet. and look, oh wow, and I only did this on however many hours of sleep. And really, we have to slow down and be cognizant and intuitive and mindful. And pay attention to those stress reduction, really incorporate it into your life. Make it a forefront, whatever the practice is, whether it be meditation, yoga, sitting just in quiet for a couple of minutes, not hours. Being mindful of those things, all of that really, and check your numbers. Know what your blood pressure is, know what your cholesterol levels are, know what your options are, know all of those things, but really know what your numbers are. Don't just go to the doctor and get your labs and flipped around. Don't just go to the doctor and get your blood pressure checked. Check your blood pressure at home. See what it's doing at home, because sometimes when people go to the doctors, they get excited or nervous or whatever, and their blood pressure is really high. But it's important to know what those numbers are at home too. So those are some tips.
Jessica, I want to go back to heart math. Being in the wellness space, I've heard about it for years, and I have what I think it is. And then having one conversation with you totally ditched all the things I thought it was. So, for our listeners, heart math's been around a long time. And you mentioned how it connects the mind, the body, and the nervous system. Well, I'm a nervous system nerd. Okay, I'm not a data nerd, but I'm a nervous system nerd. So, talk a little bit more about heart math and what's the best way for people to learn more about it.
Yeah, so HeartMath actually was founded in 1991, I believe, and it was the HeartMath Institute is in California. And people like Mayo Clinic, and a lot of people are recognizing the HeartMath techniques for nervous system regulation. They use that term coherence. And so, what that means is the heart, the brain, and the nervous system, the synchronicity. And the idea is that the emotional states to elicit a more compassion, gratitude, peace, and ease to really help with the nervous system regulation. So they're looking at the heart rate variability and all of those things. But what it does is there's techniques like heart focused breathing and different techniques, attitude breathing techniques that you can use from a day to day. And they do use biofeedback tools, but you don't have to use them. I practice heart math. You do have some biofeedback tools that I use. It's an inner balance, coherence thing that I put on my ear. But you can do these techniques with your eyes open. It's very, very user-friendly type things that we can carry with us that build our personal resilience. And so that's our capacity. We can't really control our external environment and all of the stressors that are going on in day to day. But what we can do is change how we handle and adapt and respond to them. It really helps you navigate where you are. We think of it kind of on a grid of energy renewing and energy depleting emotions. So things that frustration, anger, irritability, all of those things. And it doesn't discredit any emotions at all. It's saying there obviously is a time and a place for any of those, but it helps you make shifts to ease, compassion, peacefulness, and those sorts of things. And so it's a tool that helps you shift from one side of the grid to the other side of the grid. And it kind of gives you those techniques and helps you also, what are you putting out into the field is one of the questions. What are you putting out there into the world? So it's talking about the heart, actually, they call it kind of the heart brain. And so the heart actually has a set of neurons itself, just like the brain, that really has a lot of communicative of abilities. Yeah.
So, how does heart math affect the vagus nerve? Because there's a lot of things right now. The vagus nerve's been hot the last couple years, especially post COVID. And are there some similarities?
I think the similarity is when you're talking about the autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic, which is the rest, relax, and then the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight response. Our bodies really can't heal in a fight or flight mode. So it's really more of the activating the parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and relax response, and kind of toning down the cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and looking more into hormones that like DHEA and those types of things that help with that parasympathetic nervous system response. So then we kind of go into more of a calm, place where then that's kind of where from a mental capacity part of it that heal, but then actually from a biochemical part, hormonal pathways, different chemical pathways in our bodies can help heal as well.
This has been such a fun show. I'm always a little bit nervous, truthfully, when we have more of the science-based interview questions, but you really brought it down to a level that I think our listeners are going to appreciate to understand. But also, I really appreciated the way that you broke it down too, and really tying in your story and your why to your passion behind what you're doing. And so, for our listeners that are out there that want to stay connected with you, where can they do that? And also, where are you located?
Oh, great. Yeah, absolutely. So my website is rootedheartkc.com, and I'm at Your Wellness Connection off of 75th and Schweitzer. And so I'm seeing people in that office, and also I'm doing telehealth visits, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook. So it's Rooted Heart Wellness and rootedheartkc.com.
Perfect. Well, we will have all that information in our show notes. For those of you who want to stay connected with Jessica Love, she is in our office. So we are lucky enough to see her often. And she's doing great work here in this city, but also for all of her clients and making sure that she's holding the space for everybody that's looking for cardiac support. If you need more of the traditional route, or if you need the route where you can have more of that one-to-one conversation and really sit there with a trusted provider and open up. So Jessica, thank you for joining us today. And to our listeners, we are ending May and getting ready for June. It's a fun, hot summer here in Kansas City, and we hope that you join us next week. But until then, we're sending you triple heart-to-heart hugs.